Hey everyone, this is Anthony from Singular Sound. I wanted to walk you guys through the Aeros and BeatBuddy integration. The two pedals are plug and play, and when you put the two together, it results in a really awesome combo, especially for songwriting and just jotting down creative ideas. Let's start by going over a few of the settings you'll want to know for the BeatBuddy. We're going to go into the BeatBuddy settings menu by pressing both the drum set and tempo knobs. Then we're going to go down to where it says main pedal. From here, we're going to go all the way down to where it says MIDI settings. We'll go to MIDI out because the BeatBuddy is working as the master in this setup. And then we're going to go down to where it says start. Now this is the first setting that you're going to likely want to play around with. By default, it should be set to main beat, which means that the BeatBuddy will tell the Aeros to start playing / recording on the first bar of the main beat. However, you could set it to intro, meaning that the Aeros will start recording as soon as the BeatBuddy starts playing drums, or disable it entirely if you want the BeatBuddy to not start the Aeros under any circumstances. The next setting is the stop setting. This setting can be configured to be on pause only, pause and end, or end only. In this case, we have it set to pause and end, which means that when we pause the BeatBuddy, the Aeros will also stop playing and or recording, and when we end the BeatBuddy with an outro, the Aeros will stop at the end of the outro. The last setting that we're going to want to look at is the next part setting. If you have newer firmware, this should be enabled by default, but some of you may have older firmware in which this is actually disabled. Next part just simply says that the BeatBuddy is going to tell the Aeros to transition to another song part when you transition on the BeatBuddy. Now, this is when things might get a little bit complicated because we do have two different methods of transitioning song parts depending on the number of tracks on the Aeros. So let's go ahead and give you a quick show of how that's going to work here. Right here I have queued up a 2x2 mode song, which means there are 2 song parts and 2 tracks for each part. We're going to go ahead and start the drums, and you can see that it'll go in on the first measure, just like that, and now we have the Aeros playing. Now, this is the simplest of the 2 transitions in which we're just going to hold down, and then once we let go of this, at the end of that measure, it'll transition to the next part. Boom. Now we have song part 2. And now we can also switch song parts by using the song part button on the Aeros here if we want to switch, but let's say not switch the drums. So let's go ahead and do that here. And there you go, we've kept the drums the same. This is the easiest method to use the Aeros and BeatBuddy together in, but it's not the most powerful. That goes to the 6x6 mode. We'll end this one here on an outro. And there you go. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull up another song that I wrote earlier just for this specific thing here. And this will show you the 6x6 mode integration. It's going to start and stop the same way, but when you go to transition song parts, it'll be slightly different. Let's walk you through how it'll work before we actually start the song here. So starting, you'll start in the first song part, and then when you want to transition, you'll need to select which part you want to transition to on the Aeros, and then transition on the BeatBuddy. This enables you to jump to different parts out of order, which is especially important if, let's say, part 1 is an intro, part 2 a transition, 3 a verse, and 4 a chorus. You may not want to go in that order every single time. You may want to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 2 to 4, and then back to 2 to 3. And this will allow for that. So let's go ahead and start and just show it in use real quick. Again, it's going to start on the first measure of the main beat. So here we go. We have the first part playing. Let's go ahead and pick the second part here, which you can see is now illuminated by the green right there. And now we're in part 2. Now, within a part, we can actually not select here and transition on the BeatBuddy if we want to go to a different, drum part, but maintain the same loops. You can see there, now we're on a different drum loop, but the same instrumental loops in the Aeros. And now let's go ahead and cue up part 3. We'll hold this down a little longer here. Now we're in part 3. Now within here, we can do all of our normal stuff with mixing. Let's say we want to turn this down a little bit here. whatnot. And now we can, just as I was mentioning earlier, jump out of order, go back to part 1 or part 2. Let's go to part 2 here. We'll go at the end here, which is noted by the red. And there you go. It's pretty powerful, especially when you start writing multiple song parts, and you can see a demo of this in action with our Genius Keys video that we posted up a little bit ago. Now for this song, I'm going to go ahead and end on a pause to show you that functionality. And there you have it. That's the integration. It works together seamlessly, and I've been using this in my home as well as the studio here, and loving every second of it. Hope you guys do too, and definitely be sure to give us a shout out in the comments below. Cheers, everyone.